Okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome to this session. This is one of the first sessions of this World Congress that is putting the focus on Barcelona as the capital, as the global capital of transformation of healthcare from a sustainable, from a centered, patient-centered point of view. So thank you for being today here. And I'm very, very glad to present and to introduce the speakers of today's table. This panel has been thought in terms of what has happened in, not only in Catalonia, not only in our city, our region, our country, but at European level, at a global scale during the COVID that has accelerated to that extent the transformation, the innovation around healthcare and around the innovation in the life sciences industries. This is really important because it will change the way healthcare is seen in the future. To talk about that, we have gathered experts and specialists from different areas that will put together this perspective from the research area, from the industry, from the cluster organizations, the industry as a whole, and also from the entrepreneurship, how the different experts, the different professionals have tackled the challenges and have worked together for the solutions. This is a panel chaired and hosted by Biocat, which is the organization that dynamizes, that accelerates the life sciences and healthcare in Catalonia. So just as starters, I would like to introduce Mr. Marc Deschamps. He's the president of the board of the Council of European Bioregions, the CIBER. Biocat is also a member of this board. And this is an organization that has been working very hard and struggling to tackle all the disruptions in the value chain around the life sciences industries. And he will share his experience in that regard, also as member of BioWin, an organization like Biocat, but in the Belgium area. And also, he will explain what the Commission is doing at that point, also to address the challenges that we are facing as an industry, as an systems as a whole. So please, Marc, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Montse. I hope you can hear me very well. So, as you nicely introduced me, useless to explain again what I'm doing. I just want to make a disclaimer here. You can see on my slide the logo of the European Commission. It's not because I'm working for the European Commission, which is not the case, so I'm collaborating with them, but because most of the slides of this presentation were projected during one meeting, important meeting in July, organized by the European Commission, CIBER, and European Cluster Alliance. So, moving to the next slide, what is CIBER? As you nicely introduced, Montse, so CIBER is the Council of European Bioregions. That's a connectors association because we represent more or less 40 bioregions across Europe from 15 countries and even more now because we are expanding also in Central Eastern Europe. And the members are bioclusters, ecosystem, development agencies, and technology parks. So this is really a huge network of bioregions, again, biocluster, which are really collaborating together. And when we look to cluster, one might ask, what is a cluster, by the way? We understand that you have an organization called CIBER, but actually clusters are connectors and innovation accelerators. What you said actually for Biocat is totally true. So we are really looking to accelerate innovation in all the regions. And we have different type of members and different type of stakeholders in the bioclusters. We have the hospitals, we have the public health providers, we have the biopharma, biotech, medtech, in vitro diagnostic, health tech companies, startups up to the large companies, so including small, medium. We have the universities and the research centers. We have the investors, whether they are public or private. We have CDMOs. CDMO stands for Contract Development Manufacturing Organization. So really industry producing drugs, small molecules, biologics, vaccines for the wellness of the patients, and CROs, clinical research organization, or other type of research organization, not just for clinical trials, and the suppliers. And the network here is really based on connection across regions, as I mentioned beforehand, and countries in Europe, but also outside Europe. You have to understand that we are very well connected also with North America, with China, with Japan, with South Korea, with Australia, at least with regions where it makes sense. And the role of the BioCluster is clearly to support the companies and the members in general, to support all stakeholders in order to find solutions for the current public health crisis, and we will come back on that in a while, to identify hurdles from all points of the value chain and share them actually with the relevant stakeholders, and try to solve actually hurdles or bottlenecks we could be confronted with. And therefore, being close contact with all those involved mean that during a pandemic like COVID-19, and if I come back at the early beginning, 18 months ago, BioIn, which is the equivalent of Biocat in the southern part of Belgium, did exactly what other bioclusters did: rapidly activated the resources, identified expertise and talent needed for the projects, to initiate the project, facilitate the collaboration between the different actors in our region, and really acting as a catalyzer. And you will see some results later on. CBAR, as a connecting organization, co-organized several activities with the European Commission and the COVID-19 task force, and you will see more again in a while. We co-organized 2 matchmaking events, one for trying to support the production and increase the production capacity of COVID-19 vaccines in Europe. It was organized in March. And the second one, because we were truly convinced that vaccination is certainly a must, but you need also to have a treatment to treat the patient for the COVID-19, either the non-vaccinated or those who are protected by the vaccine for the serious phase of the disease, but could be also treated to avoid hospitalization and certainly move to ICU. So we organized the 2 matchmaking events, and I can already disclose, and it was announced 1 week ago, that a 3rd matchmaking event is now planned for the end of this month, again on COVID-19 treatments, because until today we are still lacking of several type of treatments, even if we have good announcement in the field for the moment. So just to come back to BioIn. So I'm in charge of the international representation of BioIn, and I'm representing BioIn. Again, BioIn is more or less the copycat of Biocat in Wallonia, Belgium. So what we did at the beginning of the pandemic, and you have here some concrete example, is really again to catalyze all the resources we had in the region to support the development of the testing methods with the university, you can see, and with companies. Also to support the development of serological testing, but also to develop diagnostic platforms in order to support the huge number of tests. Actually, we in Belgium, you in Barcelona, and everywhere in the world, you were supposed to deploy. And then we could count on universities in our Wallonie-Bruxelles Federation, University of Liège, University of Brussels, University of Mons, University of Namur. Industry as well, because industry provided support also for platforms. So GSK Vaccines, UCB, J&J, Janssen Pharmaceutica, BioGazelle. And we had also big testing platform in backup, ready to be used in case of, let's say, overflow of tests to do. And you can see all the universities we have in Belgium, starting with University of Antwerp, KU Leuven, Liège, and the CHU of Liège, ULB, with Erasmus Hospital, UC Louvain, UMons, and so on. And we had also the support of one CDMO called Eurogentech, member of the Caneca company, to provide reagent, actually, to have possibility to test all the population affected. And on the other side, because Belgium is the country of vaccines, I'm sure you know, we saw a lot of collaboration happening. So GSK vaccines started with Sanofi, but also developed collaboration with CureVac, mRNA vaccines in Germany. Universal, which is a CDMO, created a consortium with Reitera in Italy and Leukocare in Germany to develop COVID-19 vaccines. Novacep, recently acquired by Thermo Fisher, was already producing the AstraZeneca vaccines, drug substance. Others like Delphi Genetics, also recently acquired by Catalan Biologic this time, was developing an antiviral treatment. And we had also digital solution in full development with companies like the Analytics and Keros. So this is in a nutshell what happened in a very short period of time. And again, the role of the cluster was there not to do all those things instead of the companies, but to really make sure that we connected the right companies, the right people in order to make it happen. And then coming back to the Council of European Bioregions with the partner European Cluster Alliance, ECA. So together, as I mentioned beforehand, with the European Commission and inside the European Union, we organized the first matchmaking events called Towards COVID-19 Vaccines Upscale Production. Because at the beginning of this year, clearly, if you remember, they had some troubles with the delivery of some vaccines. Not enough vaccines were available, not just for Europe, but also for all across the world. And it was really, really very key to upscale the production in Europe. And now Europe is #1 in terms of vaccines for COVID-19 production. And so what we have identified, we did a survey among all our members at CIBA, and again, the 40 organization I mentioned before. And in a very short period of time, we were able to provide to the COVID-19 task force, European one, a survey showcasing all companies were actually available either to support the production of drug substance or drug products, or also to try to solve some bottlenecks in the supply chain. And based on that, they asked us to co-organize actually the first matchmaking event for the vaccine upscale production. Now, we are in a good shape with regard to the production of vaccines, and we moved, as I mentioned earlier on, to the development of the COVID-19 therapeutics. We all know that by the end of the first semester of this year, we had the cocktail, antibody cocktails, antibodies from survivors, different companies developing that, like Regeneron, Lilly, and so on. But it was definitely not enough. And next to that, we were still in need of essential products for also hospitalized patient and patient in ICU, like NMBs, like anti-inflammatory, like anti-immunologic compounds. So it's not just biologics, it's also all type of products. And so we organized the matchmaking event in July after having had 2 or 3 preparatory webinar meetings with all stakeholders to really understand what they wanted to hear. And so it was organized with the support of Commissioner Breton, Commissioner Kyriakides, with EMA, also with the European Investment Bank, public procurers, and and us, in order to help the companies really to find the support they were looking for to accelerate the development of their product. And it happened also in July. Already 3 treatments were selected by EMA to move forward, and now they need to select 3 more and continue to support the development of the new ones. And that's the reason why we just announced 1 big week ago the 2nd European matchmaking event on the development and production of COVID-19 therapeutics. The same, it will really be the objective to continue to support the development of these therapeutics alongside the vaccination campaign. So this is in a nutshell. The question might be, why clusters are supporting the matchmaking? And actually, because as BioCluster in Europe, we share the same objective and the main objective, which is to accelerate the development of healthcare solution for patients affected by COVID-19. And connecting across Europe brings opportunities and valuable opportunities to support the development. And so just one advice, because you are all living, quote, quote, in a cluster, and you have all actually organization close to you, don't hesitate to go to this organization, to this biocluster, if you need extra support of guidance, because even if we don't have the answer, we will provide you certainly the right contact in order for you to make progress in your development. And again, useless to say, and we are hearing that on a daily basis again today, patients are still in need and waiting, so we continue to support this development. Alors, a last thing I wanted to tell you, this is my last slide, is the creation of the ERA authorities. ERA authorities, you know, certainly BARDA in the US, but ERA will be not a copycat of BARDA, but the same type of organization. I will explain that to you in a while. So ERA stands for European Health Emergency Preparedness and Response Authority. And ERA will work on three pillars, as you can see: education, research, innovation, and business. ERA will be funded more or less 1 billion euros a year until 2027, and will receive thousands of billion euros from the member states once it will be created. It will be created normally first quarter next year. So the goal with regard to education is to strengthen knowledge and skills, aiming to improve the European capacity in preparedness and response via training programs. That's the first thing. The second thing, again, research innovation. ERA will promote advanced research and development of medical countermeasures and all related technologies. So the goal is to promote research innovation to develop effective, safe, affordable medical countermeasures. So all type of countermeasures, not just vaccines and therapeutics. And the activities will be to stimulate strategic research innovation, an agenda to guide the European Union and national funding, EU pandemic preparedness partnership, public-public, and multi-center trials platform in collaboration with EMA in order to be ready for the next pandemic once, hopefully, we will get rid of the current one. And they will rely on Horizon Europe with regard to funding and find synergies with European Innovation Council, European Research Council, Invest in EU. So what does it mean? It means that all the financial instrument of the European Commission will be activated here to stimulate the development. The other thing is business. And as you can understand, if you want to have capacity of production available for a next pandemic, you need to stimulate the development of this capacity and make sure that this capacity will be, let's say, also active in between pandemics. So they will address, and they are working on a model, and it was confirmed by Thierry Breton, the European Commissioner for the Internal Market, again 1 month ago. And they will address actually the challenge and boost the European strategic autonomy. So it's all about increasing the resilience, the autonomy, the sovereignty of Europe with regard to pandemic. So they need to identify and ensure availability of critical production sites for the countermeasure we discussed, and making them capable to increase their production in times of need, to reduce greatly the time needed between the development and the industrial scale-up and the availability for you in hospitals and the patients. And in terms of activities, so what is ongoing is the mapping of the supply chain, the manufacturing capacities, the production site, also identifying the bottlenecks and the disruption in the supply chain. We still have a lot for the moment. And including also through joint industrial cooperation forum. And today, ECA and CIBAR are already working with the Commission on a prototype, which could be able, hopefully, with ERA agency to identify as soon as possible disruption in the supply chain before actually the supply will be affected. So really early in the production value chain. This is in a nutshell what I wanted to tell you today. So I thank you for your attention, and sorry again for not being with you today. So Montse.
Thank you, Mark, for these words. I think it's interesting. We are a little bit late in the panel already, but I think it's important and it's interesting that everybody can listen to the perspectives that are probably different to our everyday life, because this Congress is about transforming healthcare from the different perspectives and analyzing the different driving forces that are around that. So thank you for presenting the role of clusters and the work that we are doing with the EC also to boost this transformation of healthcare and addressing the challenges of next pandemics or the circumstances that we can find in the near future or not so near future. And for that reason, I have two comments now. One is a technical comment in terms of organization of this panel. So if you have questions, there will be some time for questions after the speakers present. But there's one of the speakers today, Bonaventura Clotet, the director of IRSI-CAIXA AIDS Research Institute, that has to leave at 10:30. So he will be speaking after our next speaker, and then he will answer the questions for his presentation. Don't forget, please, to ask through the app, because that ensures that the micro does not go around the room. So this is for COVID protocol, the best way to ask your questions, and I will gather them from the tablet here. So just this explanation, now we go to our next speaker. So after what Mark mentioned regarding the industry opportunities and what can the industry add to this transformation of healthcare and tackling the next challenges, we have here one representative of a company in Catalonia, IPRA. She is Elia Turruella, the R&D and Regulatory Affairs Director in IPRA. And we asked her to explain IPRA as a model on how the industry understood and interpreted the challenges and how to adapt and to tackle these challenges from the industry perspective. Elia, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Just press. I think it should work.
Is that okay? Oh, yes. Okay, so good morning. Hello? Yes. Okay, so it's a pleasure being here today and sharing this roundtable. I should start by sharing with you the journey done by IPRA before May 2020, which was the time when in IPRA we decided to start the development of our COVID vaccine. In IPRA, we've been doing vaccines for the last 50 years. And when I say vaccines, that means we've done research and development and industrial scale-up and production and quality control and supply and distribution and commercialization. That means that the company has been focused in vaccines for a long time. In IPRA, we are about 2,500 people over the world, and in the headquarters of the company, which is located in Amer, which is 1.5 hours driving from Barcelona, we are about 1,500 people dedicated to vaccines. The research and regulatory team has 350 professionals dedicated to vaccines, and we have about 700 people focused in the production and quality control and supply of vaccines. So there is a lot of expertise inside of the company, and also we have the facilities to do anything we want regarding vaccines. So in May, of course, we knew that, and very important, we've been dealing with vaccines for animal health. It's important to say that the kind of vaccines we've been developing in the last years are always innovative vaccines with a high level of technology, and we are able to manage almost all kind of platforms in the research area and also in the production. So this is the reason why in May of course, May last year, we knew that some vaccines under development were reaching the clinical studies. But at that moment, we did not have any vaccine approved. And our aim was to try to find a solution, just help. We said, okay, we know about vaccines, let's try. And for a company like us, it's not difficult to organize a proof of concept because we have the knowledge, we have animal facilities. So the research team, and we are familiar with coronaviruses, by the way, because coronaviruses also affect animals. So in May, we had some internal meetings trying to see which was the best approach in terms of our expertise and also thinking on the future production. And we ended with a recombinant vaccine based in a recombinant protein. So we did a proof of concept, always being in touch with the Spanish Medicines Agency. The results were very, very good, and at that moment we decided to go ahead with the development of a new vaccine, which is facing phase 2B right now. We are about to start in Spain, phase 2B, and this week we are starting phase 2B in Vietnam. So this project came from internal knowledge because the vaccine was designed by IPRA, but very, very soon we started collaboration with different research teams in different areas in Spain, because we have a lot of talent and a lot of expertise in our region and in Spain. So in this case, I think we have an example of a good collaboration between the company having the resources and facilities and also the knowledge to develop a vaccine and to produce it with the great knowledge we have in our public research institutions and also hospitals, because we are reaching phase 2B clinical trials now thanks to the collaboration of a lot of people in our area. So I think that one of the strengths in IPRA, and this is one of the learnings also during this pandemics, is that we do from A to Z. I mean, we have expertise in research, we do development, we do our own industrial scale-up. So we have the researchers working together with the production team when we transfer a vaccine from the small size in the lab to the big size in the production. We have the quality control to transfer our analytical methods. We have the business team, we have the supply and purchasing departments. So that makes things not easy because it's been a challenge, but we have the knowledge we need to do. And if we put this knowledge and facilities together with the expertise we have in the research teams, I think we can do great things. So during the last year and a half, we had the chance to meet many people in Spain and also other countries, because we are starting organizing clinical studies outside of Europe. And I think we are building something new, at least for IPRA, which is a structure to have collaboration between private companies and institutions and also research centers. And I think that what we are building is something that will stay. Well, it's not because I think, it's we decided to do this because COVID is the first project for the company, and other new developments are following this one. A couple of months later, it was July 2020, we were contacted by Hospital Clínic in Barcelona because they were developing together with other research centers in Spain a vaccine against COVID based on RNA platform, and they asked us to join the research team. And of course we said yes, because when you develop vaccines, you know that, you have to open different technologies to find the right solution. So we decided to go ahead and also to be involved with this new project. I have to say that today we are still working on RNA altogether. We need some more time to fix this technology. I'm not sure if we will apply this to a COVID vaccine or to another thing. We have some ideas for RNA, and we think that there is still room for improvement of the RNA platforms we know today, or the vaccines in the market. So there is still a lot of work to do, but we are convinced that we will find the way to fix it and to see how we can apply this new technology to other diseases. So once again, one project attracts another one. So some of the researchers we met and we knew because of RNA platform are involved in the recombinant protein development today. So this is very important because you get, well, it's what I said before, one project attracts new one. And when we are thinking on new developments for new vaccines for human health, then we always think on these people, in these researchers, because we think that we are building something very unique. So to end with my introduction, I have to say that these projects around COVID, which are the first projects for a new division for IPRA, because as you can imagine, COVID has been our first project for human health, but we will continue in this new line of products. We already set up a new division for human health. When you think on the big pharmas, some of them has a division for animal health and also a division for human health, because there are some diseases which are very common and it makes a lot of sense. So as said before, COVID is the first project for IPRA and open a new division, which is this new division for human health. So one way or another, this pandemic also has accelerated things for IPRA to start a new area, a new division. We would reach this step sooner or later, I'm convinced, but just COVID accelerated things. So I would like to end my short introduction by saying that IPRA, and together with other research teams and also institutions in Spain, we learn a lot during this period, and I'm sure that if in the future we have a new need which requires reaction, we would start from day zero, and we will be able to provide the solution, if not the first one of the first, because we know what we have to do, and we are ready to do things in a different way the next time. So I would like to end by saying that we will keep pushing for the development of this new generation of vaccine against COVID, and I'm sure that very soon we will be able to provide this new tool to the market, because there is still room for good quality vaccines against COVID. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Elia. This has been really interesting, and we probably will have some questions for you to learn a little bit more on the journey to this shift from animal to human health. Remember, please, that you can ask questions from now already to Marc Deschamps, to Elia, and to the speakers that will come next. Now we will also welcome Dr. Bonaventura Clotet as a speaker today. And it has a lot to do with the collaboration that Elia mentioned. What the COVID has brought is also that the borders of collaboration have become more blurred, have changed, and more collaboration frameworks, more business models have been appearing, and our question is that, is this here to stay? Will collaboration be following what we've seen during the COVID time? And about collaboration, Dr. Clotet will talk about his experience, the experience in Catalonia, his role from his research institute, IRSI Caixa Research Institute. But also, let's keep in mind that the sustainability is the focus, is the driving force also for this collaboration. And just to mention on sustainability, because everybody has the same definition for that, is addressing today's needs without compromising the needs and rights of future generations. And that's what our collaboration must keep in mind too. So we will welcome also Dr. Clotet. Please recall that you can ask the questions for Dr. Clotet right after his participation. Thank you, Bonaventura. The floor is yours.
I hope you can hear me well. So thank you for inviting me in this roundtable, and apologies for not being present there for reasons that better not to have to explain. But the fact is that fighting against a pandemic has allowed us to recognize the role played by the research developed for a former pandemic, which was the HIV pandemic. So Isicasha was founded more than 25 years ago. So I have more than 100 people working in basic research, but also more than 100 people working in clinical research. Then, thanks to all the expertise generated by the research in the field of HIV, we have been capable to tackle the COVID pandemic more easily, and we were able to speed up our research focusing on coronavirus more easily and more efficiently than if we would not have been trained and expert in the field of disease like HIV, impacting also the immune system. So let me say that what we have learned is that nothing is possible if you walk alone, and that you need to join efforts with other groups, and that in February 2020 we start developing the research that will allow us to set up the techniques for assessing through ELISA test the antibodies to detect the infection. And this was the information that we were producing were always put in our web and made available to all the centers willing to use our results and our expertise. And also because we were very very excited with the possibility to support the fight against coronavirus, we thought that we will need alliance with key groups, and then we created a committee or a sort of organization that we call CIVIC, which represents the 4 centers involved, that were the Supercomputing Center, where CRESA is the Center for Research in Animal Health, then our institute Isicasha, and that was made possible thanks to a grant from Grifols, a Catalan company, that allowed us to create this committee, this group for research that has been very, very productive. But also allow me to, for future scenarios like this, to highlight that we need governments, politicians, thinking of that research centers is plenty of talent in this region and everywhere, but talent needs money, and money should come from grants and from a sort of seed money to allow centers of research to move forward initial ideas, to have a proof of concept, and then it would be more easy to fight and to develop new information and more knowledge on any possible new or current disease. So this is crucial because I want to mention that one of the first things that we did was to focus in clinical part and assess the utility of some drugs available at the very beginning, like hydroxychloroquine, and then Also, we focus in basic research, and we start designing a vaccine, a recombinant vaccine, and also we're designing and making available the test for assessing the presence of neutralizing antibodies, which has been very useful, and I will focus on this a little bit later. But now let me just remind that if we would not have had money to go ahead with our clinical project, we would not have shown that hydroxychloroquine was useless, completely useless for tackling this disease. If you remember at the very beginning, because it was a drug easily available and quite safe because it was used for other purposes, then we decided to run a clinical trial with thousands of patients, and the final results came out in the New England Journal of Medicine recently, and we were capable to show that it was not useful. Unfortunately, there are countries still using this compound, despite the evidence that it's not useful. But we were capable to move ahead with this clinical trial thanks to fundraising activities that allowed us to collect money to support this trial, which cost more than 1 million euros. And but was very important to allow to generate the information that will tell the world that they shouldn't focus in this compound and move to others. That was again generated through fundraising, and it will be ideal the day that the authorities and governments can provide enough money, enough seed money to the research centers to be capable to move rapidly ahead these ideas and proof of concepts. But we were able to culture all the variants of virus and to assess in vitro the cytotoxicity of these viruses in presence of different drugs. We have tested more than 70 different drugs, and we have found a handful of them very potent, and we are in close contact with different pharma companies in Spain to develop these compounds. And also, again, we have been assessing the long-lasting protection from neutralizing antibodies developed either by vaccines or after the infection. And we have shown that in people aged more than 65, the vaccination is lasting very short, and is short-lasting, and only probably no more than 3-6 months of high titers of neutralizing antibodies, and they become undetectable. In younger people, despite declining neutralizing antibodies, it might happen that there are memory cells, plasmatic memory cells, that might react quite quickly and produce enough new neutralizing antibodies that will block the progression of the disease. But in older people, and mostly those that are 70 or 80, in this setting, this sort of reaction, it takes longer, and it doesn't have the quality required to block efficiently the virus. So then we are facing now vaccinated people that quite old, that needs to be revaccinated. So it's very evident that there is a need for a third dose, and possibly for subsequent doses. And for that reason, it's crucial to develop vaccines like IPRA and also like our vaccine based on a recombinant protein that is in the animal model protecting against all variants so far found, and this is very exciting for us. And again, we are sharing knowledge with IPRA in different settings, and this will help us. Let's see if we move forward together or not, but a part of that, if we move ahead other projects, because again, this pandemic should allow us to use more efficiently and more rapidly all the structures, all the backbones of association of centers that in front of a new challenge, we will react more rapidly, and this is very important. However, I would say that without this amount of money that help the research centers to move forward very quickly, we will always have a handicap, and governments should understand that they should really help the centers that have shown enough quality for producing science in different settings. I think that we have been involved in assessing also the value of rapid antigenic test for massive events that were gathering thousands of people, and we have shown the efficacy of this test together with the proper use of masks and vaccination. But we have contributed to the field also in the generation of new immune globulins that might be blocking efficiently the virus in the next steps. We have been involved in the international clinical trials assessing molnupiravir. We are currently involved in the protease inhibitor that has been designed by Pfizer and needs to be boosted by ritonavir. And also we are involved with Grifols in assessing the immune globulins, hyperimmune immune globulins being administered during the first 3-4 days after infections to show if they are capable to block the progression of the disease. So we will have new drugs, but we need more vaccines because we will need to revaccinate people and find the safest vaccine that can be re-administered several times without any risk or severe risk for patients. And there is a lot of information that needs to be generated, and therefore there is a need to continue this collaboration with different centers to find solution to all the problems that we are tackling with this pandemic of coronavirus. So I will finish here, and thank you again for the invitation, and I'm open to answer all the questions that you might need to ask me. Hello?
Now,
Hello?
yes, yeah, sorry.
Oh.
Sorry, Benaventura, I just had a problem with my micro. So thank you, Dr. Clotet, for your words here, and I would like to take this opportunity also to mention that Dr. Clotet is one of the most outstanding researchers and professors in Catalonia, and also he's a global figure, is he's been actually, he has a lot of awards, but he received just a few days ago the Catalonia National Research Award. So I want also to congratulate him for that, because it's just really recent. And thank you for being here today. I know that you had some problems to join, so thank you for the efforts. And I want to ask you 2 questions, and please recall that you can ask him questions. Is there any question in the room for him? Yeah, can someone bring the mic over there? Yeah. Meanwhile, I just want to ask you, you mentioned the collaboration also, and the transformation and the positive outcomes of this period. So do you envision really a transformation of the healthcare, a patient-centered transformation of healthcare? And which are the significant barriers to address, for example, for personalized medicine, or for something that we are really all looking forward to, that is this transformation with the patient at the center? What have you seen that has to be changed to accomplish that? And also, what should have we done differently if a new pandemic comes, or a new situation like this comes? What should have been done differently? So the not to-dos.
Well, let me say first, thank you for mentioning the award, but the awards are always received thanks to all the team, so it's all the team that merits the award, and I'm very proud to be the one receiving it, but I'm very proud also of my team. Having said that, to accomplish the challenge or to face the challenge of new pandemic, or even the current one, because we still need to assure the duration of the protection and the safety of the revaccination, and mostly there are special groups that don't develop at all any neutralizing antibodies. See how we manage them. That could be thanks to these new compounds that are being developed, or the monoclonal antibodies that seems to be very efficient. But we need to really continue doing research in the field. Is not ended the pandemic. We shouldn't think that there is no longer a problem with coronavirus. There could come out variants that could become even resistant to the current vaccines, and therefore we need to continue our research in this sort of collaboration that we have set up with different centers. And again, I want to highlight that there is plenty of talent everywhere. And it's a pity that governments do not become aware the need of really feeding these centers with this sort of seed money that is crucial for research centers facing new scenarios like a pandemic, but also for moving towards other targets like we are doing with cancer. We are developing a therapeutic vaccine for pancreatic cancer, but we are also doing a lot of work based on microbiota and its role in the response to vaccines, and also to some neurodegenerative diseases, and all this work that can be done thanks to what we learned and we created at the very beginning of our research in the HIV field, now needs to be supported by this sort of money that should be enough. And my concern is that I don't know if that the money that will be allocated will be enough and lasting enough. So it's a sort of trade-off between the amount but the duration. because again, it's very important to be capable to react immediately in a scenario like the one we had, and the connections with different centers are, I would say, are quite good, and we are capable rapidly to work out any problem and to join efforts. But then what we need is money, and then this is crucial. And I'm not sure if the lesson will have been learned correctly, and hopefully it will, but I will not bet a lot.
Thank you. Yeah, I think we all can agree in there, and we hope really that those words are listened. So, yeah, we had a question over there.
Very briefly, you mentioned, Professor Stephen Favre from Malta, you mentioned that immunity tends to wane post-vaccine in the elderly, but not in younger individuals, whilst younger individuals tend to have more immune side effects from the vaccine. So, to my mind, that might mean that there's different risk-benefit ratio on the elderly to repeated vaccine compared to the younger individuals. So, would you like to comment on that, whether the elderly would benefit from more repeated vaccines, but the younger individuals not, because of more risk of immune side effects from vaccine, COVID vaccine?
Shall I answer this?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, so the trade-off of vaccines and side effects is huge, so favorable to vaccines that we shouldn't be very concerned about these side effects in young people or older people. What we should assess is the duration of the protection, which is not the same in the younger or in the young people than in the old people. And this is what concerns me these days, and we are following a cohort of old people and assessing how much time do they last the protection conferred by the vaccine. And so far, the older you are, the poorer is or the shorter is the duration of this protection. And then we need to follow this cohort, see what happens when the new outbreaks affect this old population, and therefore protect them. By fortune, we will have drugs that will help us to also treat this old population and impede the progression to a severe disease. Regarding the young people, it's certainly young people have a non-severe disease in the majority of cases, but they also suffer the long COVID disease despite being young, and despite suffering in a subclinical or asymptomatic way the infection. So, and because the long COVID or post-COVID syndrome could be severe and really affect the quality of life, this could be avoided by the use of vaccines in the young people. Not all vaccines produce the same side effects, and then that's why there is a need to generate more vaccines to find out which is the one who have less side effects. But despite that, still the trade-off is highly favorable to the vaccination. And if we are facing these days in Catalonia that the outbreak is remaining pretty stable and very well controlled, if you look to the map of Europe, it's hopeful in Germany and other important countries, and we are not having this problem here, is thanks to the vaccination and achieve the percentage of people vaccinated in our region in Catalonia. So we have to trust vaccines. This for sure is the immediate way to control the next or upcoming outbreaks, but we have to continue searching new vaccines and knowing how we can revaccinate with different kinds of vaccines, and also developing new drugs, new molecules that will block the virus independently of the variant that might come out.
Well, thank you, Dr. Clotet, for these answers. And please recall that you can ask the questions through the app. Unfortunately, Dr. Clotet is leaving now, but we can gather the questions and eventually ask for his answers if possible. So thank you and best of luck.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Okay. Okay, so we move forward with our next speakers, but before, just let's say that we were talking about collaboration, and for this collaboration, can we have next slide, please? Okay, for collaboration, there's a broad spectrum of activities that we can develop to accelerate innovation through this collaboration. And we want to now to present one of those activities, one of the programs that we have that we boost from Biocat, which is DHealth Barcelona. There have been several examples of this collaboration during the COVID times, and I'd like to mention precisely one of those collaborations that we had in Biocat, this program that is addresses unmet clinical needs. Can I have the next one, please? Exactly. This DHealth Barcelona is a program that trains innovators from different perspectives. So we gather, we identify needs, or we facilitate the teams to identify needs, to find the business idea, to develop this business idea, and to find the applicability of this business idea. And in this framework, this program that has been funded by EIT Health for 7 years, and it's an initiative of Biocat based on the biodesign method of Stanford University. So this program in 2020 went digital, as many other activities, everybody had to shift to digital world, to online world. And if usually these teams working in the Health Barcelona program follow an immersion period in hospitals to identify those needs, those unmet needs from the clinical perspective, and those teams formed by engineers, physicians, researchers, identify those needs and develop solutions, they faced one main challenge, COVID. And from the online world, they met, they worked, they developed, and they came with solutions like the one we are going to hear now from their founders, their, the people that are behind this solution, which are Sofia Ferreira and Oriol Roca. So those speakers that we have here today are founders of HICAP, which is one startup that accelerates recovery after invasive mechanical ventilation. And this was a need they identified, and they teamed up to found this startup. They will explain about that. But just to mention, this is exactly what collaboration is about. So coming from different areas, identifying solutions and boosting it together in a collaborative way with, of course, the funding that Dr. Clotet requested. That is really important to have it, to boost these ideas. So please go ahead. Sofia and Oriol, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Montse. Can you put the next slide, please? Okay. So as Montse said, I'm going to share our story. We are just in the beginning of this venture, but I think we are in the right way to make it happen. Our startup, it's called HICAP, and as you can see, it's a solution to prevent the diaphragmatic atrophy in patients that are connected to invasive mechanical ventilation. So this project started last year, in January last year, together with my partner Laura, that she is not here, but she's my half. We started an innovation program organized by Biocat, which is the DHealth, and it's based on the biodesign methodology from Stanford. And the objective of the biodesign is to detect an unmet clinical need, but that has potential transfer to the market. And I think that it's very important because there is a lot of research, but the program was also focused on creating a solution and seeing how this solution was going to be able to go into market. So in January, we started our clinical immersion. We were in Hospital Germans Trias i Pujol doing the immersion in the gynecology and obstetrics department, which was super interesting. But then COVID pandemic arrived, and of course, we were not essential personnel in the hospital. And together with Biocat, we decided to move the program into an online immersion. And that was quite scary, no? Because you saved 1 year of your life to do this program, but everybody was in the same situation, right? Everybody needed to adapt to the online world. So we started performing an online clinical immersion, focusing on the main problem, the COVID problem, right? Understanding what was happening inside the hospitals, talking to physicians, to nurses, trying also to talk to patients who were living the problem by themselves. And we detected a lot of clinical needs. And after all, we decided to focus on this one, which is a way to reduce the ventilator-induced diaphragm dysfunction in mechanical ventilated patients. So we understood that there was a real unmet need that wasn't solved. There were other solutions in the market, but none of them was being used in the hospitals. So we decided to move forward with this need. We started to make interviews to the main stakeholders, not just physicians, but also nurses. We talked to the hospital managers to understand how the procurement process of this solution was made. And we were considering also the entry into public and private hospitals, and etc. So we were trying to cover the 4 domains of the project, which were the clinical, the market, the regulatory, and the technology. And after that, we finished our program in October. We graduated, and we decided that we had to continue with this project because it was because the need was there, and there was no good solution for that. So we saw that 46% of patients that are in invasive, connected to invasive that 46% of patients in intensive care units are connected to invasive mechanical ventilation for more than 1 day. This leads into more or less around 2.8 million patients in Europe and in the US that are fighting for their lives and breathing through a tube. And this has a huge cost because the cost per day in the ICU is very expensive. So the average cost per patient is around 30,000 euros. So this is how the diaphragm normally works in normal breathing, no? So it contracts and relaxes in every breath. But during mechanical ventilation, the diaphragm stops working and it develops a diaphragmatic atrophy. And why this is important? Because this has severe consequences for patients. They need to stay more time in ventilation, more time in the ICU, more hospitalization, and afterward, the post-ICU rehabilitation, it's cheaper, it's more expensive, and it has consequences for patients, mainly in their quality of life. So that's why we decided to create a solution that it's a non-invasive solution to prevent diaphragmatic atrophy in patients that are connected to mechanical ventilation. And the way it works, it's through TEDS in synchronization with patients' breathing. There are scientific publications that demonstrate how TEDS, which is transcutaneous electrical diaphragmatic stimulation, strengthens the respiratory muscles, which is the patients during the weaning process. Taking a look to the Vall d'Hebron Hospital, the numbers, we can see that if they have around 1,200 admissions per year, they could save at least 2.6 million euros just by reducing 1 day the stay in the ICU, and this is just without considering the post-ICU cost, the rehabilitation and the hospitalization. And well, this is the motor behind HICAP. This is the people who are making this possible. As Dr. Clotet said, and Montse, this is thanks to collaboration. We have different backgrounds. We have Dr. Roca, which is leading the clinical part. We have Laura, she's a biomedical engineer, and she's like the contact between the clinical and the technological world. We also have Jaime, who is working in an algorithm because the electrostimulation is done in synchronization with the patient's breathing, and myself. And yeah, that's it. I think we are just in the beginning of this project, but I think we are doing every step just to make it happen. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Sophia. And we will hear probably, I don't know if you want to add something to that, Dr. Oriol.
Sophia explained it very well. I have nothing to add.
It's a clear example on how this transdisciplinary collaboration delivers a specific and a real solution for the patients and for the challenge that has been presented. And Sophia, as an industrial engineer, also Laura as biomedical engineer, Jaime as electronic engineer, and Oriol as a critical care specialist, they teamed up to deliver this solution. So these are the examples that this program, DHealth Barcelona, has been working for several years now. And we have here in the room also Nuria Martí. She's the Director of Innovation of Biocat and the responsible for this program. So if anyone wants to know more about that, please address to her, and she'll be happy to answer. So I think we are more or less at the end of this first part, on which each speaker presented their introductions or their perspectives. And now there's a time for questions. I have a couple of questions for each, but please recall, you can send your questions through the app. There was one question from someone, Eric, in the room, I think. And the question somehow disappeared from the app, so if you want to send that again, otherwise Elia recalls the question and she will be able to answer that. And if you want to start answering this question that we received, I don't know if the person who asked the question is in the room to repeat it, or otherwise she can try after what she saw.
The question was related to the vaccination, or the need of to vaccinate animals related to the health in, now I think it was related to the health in humans, and of course, yes, without any doubt, vaccinating animals, domestic or wild or companion animals, and helping decreasing or controlling the diseases in animals has an impact in controlling diseases in humans. So yes, the answer is yes, it makes a lot of sense. It's not easy sometimes to vaccinate wild animals, but when this is possible, it makes sense. So this is the One Health concept, which is very important, and this is, we are very convinced that it's important to control diseases in animals and humans, and by being able to do this, that's very important. So yes, very important to vaccinate animals as well.
Okay, any other question in the room? I have some myself, so okay. So from my perspective, we all were talking about collaboration. I just want to recall that in the beginning of the pandemics, there was a call launched by the government of Catalonia to identify projects working from the research and the centers, from the hospitals linked to the health ministry on COVID. Some were repurposed from other areas, and about 19 projects were funded with this call. Some of them were developing through a year, and some of them also were interesting because they're particularly interesting in today's debate or dialogue, because some of them were linked also to IPRA in terms of you have explained the vaccine you are developing is also on collaboration with some research institutes in Barcelona, in Catalonia. And I think this is an example of what an organization like Biocat can do on that regard, which is a connection among the research organizations, the hospitals, like in the program here, or on the development of vaccines. And these are among the outcomes. But my question is, do you think this is something that is here to stay? Will you find these connections like something as a starting point for future developments? That's one part of the question. And my second part of the question is, so have been the difficulties from a company, from the perspective of a company working on animal health, shifting to human health? Which are the main barriers? And do you think after the COVID, these barriers are going to be smaller and easier to overcome because now of the acceleration of everything?
Okay, so well, the first question is this relationship here to stay? Yes. See before, when you work together with a research public center and you feel that you are building something good and you have synergies, it's easy to think on this partner for the next project. So we started with one project based on recombinant protein, based on internal knowledge. Very soon we started, or we joined a research group or a group of different research centers for another project. We are still in this group, and we are thinking on new projects, and of course we will collaborate with these researchers and with new ones. So at least for IPRA, this is here to stay and for a long time. So about the difficulties for a company like us, the main difference between, well, I have to say that for it's, you need to start a project for human health, you need to have the knowledge. And this is the more important thing. We had the knowledge inside of the company, and we had the knowledge of, I would say, the different areas. So research, development, industrial scale-up is very, very important when you deal with a vaccine, and also production and control and supply. So when you have the knowledge, the only thing you need is to take a decision to go ahead. So the more difficult difference, the main differences are when you reach the clinical studies or the clinical steps in a vaccine for humans. But when you reach that step, you work together with hospitals and researchers. So there is nothing that a company like us cannot do for a vaccine for humans. So the more difficult thing is the time. Because we started in May, and we knew that we need to push speed, or to have a speed in the project. So usually we need 7, 8, 10 years to develop a new vaccine. And well, this was not feasible for COVID. So I would say that the more difficult thing has been the time and the need to do tasks in parallel. But once again, if you have the knowledge and you have the team and the expertise, there is nothing you cannot do. So while we've learned a lot, we are still learning a lot, because there is still a lot of work to do inside of IPRA and together with the hospitals and research teams to make this, to put this vaccine in the hands of the market. We need to cover the last clinical steps and also the regulatory process, but we are ready for that. So we are optimistic and confident that we will be able to provide this new tool to the market. As Bonaventura Clotet said before, there is still room and need for these new kind of vaccines, and our vaccine is one of them.
Thank you, Elia. I have one question for Mark. I think Mark's still there, so I don't know if you can connect and answer the question.
I am.
Yeah, you're there. Great. My question is, you work from the, I don't know if you have your camera on?
My camera is on, so
Okay,
depending.
so I don't know if you can, from the, okay, thank you, you're there. So my question is, from the cluster's perspective and your role as, let's say, connection to the European Commission and to the decision centers in the European Commission as well. So which are the not to-dos, and which would you be ready for if the situation is coming again, or for the, because at the end of the day we're talking about preparedness, resilience, and how to overcome the next challenges that we can face in that regard. So which are the main lessons from this time, and what we shouldn't do again, or what would you advise the Commission to do very quickly in the first step.
Yes, thank you, Motse. The first thing is actually CIBA were very, let's say, available for the Commission, representing the bioregions, the biocluster, and we were there really to provide any type of support we could actually generate within our bioregions to help the Commission to move forward on the big themes, which are definitely vaccines, treatments, and so on. And step by step, I think the trust and confidence was built between particularly the DG GROW, which is still leading the COVID-19 task force, and the people there, and we started to really collaborate on that. It's definitely clear that Europe were really lacking behind the pandemic, as many other regions in the world, and plenty of emergencies were, let's say, on the agenda. So that's the reason why, from a local perspective, the biocluster were looking to what was the first urgent, actually, solution to find. And as a European cluster connection or association, if you prefer, we were trying really to support the European Commission on the big projects which are related to vaccines and treatments. So clearly, I think Europe is not proud of that, but Europe realized that, first of all, it was really difficult to produce vaccines as fast as it was expected by the population and for the vaccination campaign. Now they can really claim that Europe is #1 in terms of vaccines production in the world, which is great. So we try to contribute to that and to support the companies with advanced purchase agreement with our own members, our own companies, really to make sure that all the support would be available for that. And in the discussion also with the European Commission, and you can imagine that these people are not specialists in healthcare, are not great people like Bonaventura Clotet and so on. So they were also looking to get advice and opinion from people quite familiar with the field, to understand what was the next step. And then we started to engage them behind the COVID-19. We said, so the developer must express their needs. We organized pre-meetings with the developers to understand what was the regulatory support, the clinical trial support, the financial support they needed. So again, we were there as facilitator in order to make sure that at the time we had the matchmaking with the COVID-19 therapeutics, all the relevant stakeholders at European level were there, not only to express what they are doing to support actually the development of these therapeutics, but also present in the matchmaking to have one-to-one discussion to discuss specific needs. And by the way, for the vaccines, we were very pleased to see IPRA coming for the matchmaking as well, and joining this community. So again, so the European Commission, thanks to the matchmaking, is creating a European community of companies and stakeholders having the ability to develop either vaccines or treatments or essential medicine and so on. This community exists. And so what I really wanted to do in order to leverage this community is what I said with the ERA agency, is making sure that this community will be supported on different aspects to be ready for the next time. So we are still lagging behind with the treatment today, useless to tell you, but it means that all the lessons are drawn. The lessons also about the supply chain, the disruption, the reaction of supposed allies all over the world, and so on, were very well taken by the European Commission. And that's again what they are claiming now. They want to regain independence, autonomy, sovereignty for the majority of these key elements, key countermeasure for pandemic. Does it mean that they will be totally mastering actually everything? Certainly not. We cannot start to reproduce and to do everything in Europe, but at least what is coming from other countries must be very clearly agreed between, I say Europe and the US, I say Europe and potentially India, China, and so on, in order to make sure that we will not fall into these big problems of disruption, of shortage, and so on. That's what they want. Again, very, let's say, modest. The CIMAR and the cluster are there to support and to answer the question and to make sure that we can facilitate any activities which are going into this direction, which is to address the pandemic and even more the needs of the patients.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you. It's a very complete answer, and totally agree with your diagnosis on which are the big disruptions and what we can do on that regard from the cluster perspective or from the organizations like ours and the CIBER itself. So now I have we have like 5 minutes left, and we have 2 questions from the room. There's one, I think Eric de Rudenbeke, I don't know if he's in the room. Yeah, thank you. So you ask, how do you manage IP with collaboration between potential competitors? You want to address that question to Elia, to Sofia and Uriol? To Biocat. So, okay.
Much better.
Okay, yeah. We are a non-for-profit organization, actually. We have a mandate from the government of Catalonia to accelerate or dynamize the government of Catalonia and also the administrations and our governing bodies, which are also private and public. So, but we are a non-for-profit, so we do not enter into IP subjects. We connect, dynamize, and help accelerate the organizations. Of course, this is an ecosystem, and we have all the stakeholders here, and there's IP experts, regulatory experts, the companies themselves, and we connect them, help them, accelerate them through the modules of our accelerators also, but we do not enter on those subjects of course, of competition in the market, etc. So for that question, probably should be the companies themselves that have brought those innovations to the market, the ones that are going to answer. What we do actually from Biocat is to gather all the projects or the possible innovations, the startups, the interesting ideas, and offer from a neutral perspective this portfolio of ideas to those that want to connect to them, corporates, investors, etc. So our role is more like a showcaser and connector, and then all the particular subjects about IP and competition in the market, it's of course for the companies themselves and the stakeholders themselves. This is a very reproducible model around Europe. All bioregions particularly work this way. We are not a private association, so I'll be glad to give more, or to get in touch and provide more information on their specific details. And another question here, we don't have the name of the person that asked this question, but it's for Sofia and Uriol. The outcome of this Greek hiccup project, is it a proved procedure? How effective is it to prevent atrophy?
The outcome of the project is to prevent diaphragmatic atrophy, which is a common problem in ICU patients who require mechanical ventilation for more than 24 hours. Imagine that you are continuously training your diaphragm while you are breathing, but if a machine breathes for you, the diaphragm does not work anymore, and if this situation prolongs for more than 24 hours, you are at risk of developing diaphragmatic atrophy. By the electrical stimulation, we try to prevent this atrophy, and once you are recovered from the critically ill process that makes you to be under control mechanical ventilation, your diaphragm would be more prepared to restart breathing again, and this is the idea. This is not a common procedure. You can stimulate the diaphragm by different ways. We choose the transcutaneous way, which is the more easy way and the more non-invasive way. And this is where we are now, and we are starting the experiments, trying to know if it's feasible or not, and the results will come in the next month.
Thank you, Riol. I mean, it's time now. I don't know if there's a last question about the health project, and probably your question, Eric, was related to that. Nuria can also answer. Nuria here, just raise your hand. She can answer everything about the project, the program too, if you have specific questions about the IP, etc. And just as a final mention, Oriol, from the hospital perspective, I think that since this is a hospital congress, I think you have the word here as a hospital representative in terms of what, just in a half a minute, what you've learned from this time collaborating with, the industry or the innovation agents.
I think that in terms of clinical practice, we have learned a lot. We have developed contingency plans to reconvert a traditional hospital to a COVID-19 hospital. We increased our ICU capacity from 50 beds to 200 in less than 2 weeks. But in terms of research, I think that we have done a very good job in terms of prevention. We have developed vaccines in a very fast period of time. But in terms of treating patients of COVID, I would say that we need to invest more funds to make more research, because not all people will be vaccinated. This is the reality, and we will have more COVID-19 patients. So I think that we need to balance a little bit more the research in prevention and the research in treatment as well.
So thank you very much. Thank you for your attendance today, and see you here. And any questions, we're happy to answer. Thank you very much to the speakers, and thank you very much to the public. Have a nice day.